Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host of the Dean's Chat podcast. As you all know, my goal is to bring leaders in the profession to the Dean's Chat podcast. Today is no exception. Today, we are going to highlight the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, and I'd like to welcome my guests to the show. I'd like to introduce the president, Dr. Eric Barp, and the executive director, Mr. PJ Andrus. Welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, it's great to have you here. You know, we go with kind of a fireside chat vibe. So if it's all right with you, let's just go with first names. We'll go with Eric and PJ and Jeff. How's that sound?
Perfect.
All right. Well, to get started, Eric, I was hoping you'd kind of kick it off. I want to know about your podiatric journey. Later in the discussion, we'll talk about ACFAS and becoming the president. But really, all of us start somewhere, right, and find out about podiatric medicine. How did that play out for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in western Nebraska, and I remember as a kid seeing Dr. Garcia, who was a podiatrist in Sidney, Nebraska, and had some exposure then. Went to undergrad. I knew I wanted to do something in medicine, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I shadowed one of the local podiatrists in Shatter, Nebraska, and I loved it. I loved what she did. From the patient care standpoint, I'm not somebody who can sit in an office or behind a desk all day, so I love the interaction. So applied to podiatric medical school, and here I am 25 years later.
So that shadowed experience was pivotal for you.
Absolutely. The time that she took to spend out of her practice really turned me on to what the capabilities of a podiatrist or foot and ankle surgeon were, and I liked what I got.
Very good. And then once you decided you wanted to be a podiatrist, how did you go about deciding where you wanted to go to school?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's still the same as it is, but we have this centralized application service. So applied to all of them. I interviewed at Des Moines. Being a Midwest kid, I knew I want to be in the Midwest. My wife's from the Midwest as well. So Chicago, Des Moines. There wasn't very many pod schools back then. Cleveland, I went to Cleveland as well. And I loved Des Moines and what it had to offer. So here I am.
Great. Just a little side note, about 20 years ago, we started the North Colorado Podiatric Medicine and Surgery Residency Program, and we had a pipeline to Des Moines. And I started working with Kevin Smith back when I was the clerkship director, and he was faculty at Des Moines. So times move on, that's for sure. So then, Eric, you went to school for 4 years at Des Moines, and then you did your residency also in Des Moines, correct?
I did, yeah. I did Broadlands Medical Center, which is a county hospital here in Des Moines. And the beauty of doing my residency at a county hospital is you never knew it was going to come in the door. From open fractures to elective stuff, you name it, it'd come in, gunshot wounds, et cetera. So it was always amazing to me. The training was great. We saw everything and felt like I was well trained when I came out.
Very good. Let's circle around and talk about practice in a little bit. But I wanted to shift gears. Welcome, PJ.
Thank you.
I wanted to just say a few words about your background as the executive director of ACFAS. PJ got his undergraduate degree at the University of Dayton, majoring in marketing and finance. He also has an MBA from DePaul University, the Kellstadt Graduate School of Business. You're also a certified association executive, and we're really glad to have you here on the show, PJ. We all have podiatric journeys. Please share yours.
Yes, a little different journey. But first off, thank you again for inviting us to be here. It's a pleasure to be talking with you. Just a quick stat to sort of frame it up, because it's always interesting. There's 1.6 million not-for-profits in the United States, right? So ACFAS is a not-for-profit. The subcategory we're in is associations, of which there's 90,000. So we are certainly not alone. But I can tell you, when I go to a dinner party and tell people what I do, I oftentimes glaze over and aren't really sure exactly what it is I do. So all that to say, my journey here was accidental. Many folks in the association management space don't intend to get into association management. Mine started right out of college. So when I left the University of Dayton, I began with a company that we now actually share a building with them, the Association Management Center. So they manage about, give or take, 100 associations. And so I came in without knowing much about the world of associations and was able to work across several industries, everything from being in medicine and healthcare to working in construction, philanthropy, the paper industry. And so it was really where I was able to learn association space, what I had learned in that undergrad setting. And so just briefly from there, I was only there for a few years, but I really spent most of my career at the American Hospital Association. I went there, and that's where this really turned into a career, right? It went from a job to being my career. That's where, as you mentioned, I went back and got my master's and got certified. I did all that under the umbrella of the American Hospital Association. So it really was an amazing group where I got to grow up. And while I went from there to another small association for about a year and a half, the stars aligned when I got the call about the college. I had left healthcare, I left medicine, and it was with a small veterinary group. And so when I got the call about this, I was thrilled. And that was the beginning of my journey here, which was shortly followed by COVID, but we won't go into all that. So all that to say, it's been a great journey, and I'm excited to have found ACFAS.
Oh, that's great. You beat me to the segue to COVID. It's changed the way all of us do things. In fact, even having the ability to do interviews like this on a podcast is really a product of COVID in many, many ways. So when you first got involved with the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, what was the learning curve like? What was your first 6 months like?
Great question. So I had quite a bit of time with my predecessor, Chris Mahaffey. We had about 90 days where I was able to come in once a week, get to know him, and try to have as much of his 17 years of knowledge downloaded to me. And so I was able to spend that time from afar, but not actually have the CEO responsibilities yet. And so that was extremely helpful, as well as just reading everything I could. I wanted survey data. I wanted, if you haven't read, it's on the ACFAS website. My predecessor developed The Evolution of a Profession, and it was the first 75 years of ACFAS, a phenomenal book for onboarding to try to get up to speed as quickly as possible. But as we talked about, my first day was February 1st, 2020. So there wasn't much time. And if you recall in there, we had our 2020 annual scientific conference. So it was coming back from that COVID really took over. And so from an onboarding standpoint, it went from what are the issues our members are facing to how do we work remotely, right? How do we go through all those exercises that we had to go through at that time? So it was kind of a dual focus of trying to figure out how to be remote and then learning our members and the issues they were facing and how do we help support them in those issues.
Very good. If you were to give an elevator pitch about what is the mission of ACFAS, what would you say?
Great question again. So there's the formal mission, right? Which is, and we the board last year just updated the strategic plan. And part of that was the mission statement, right? So advancing excellence in foot and ankle surgery to achieve superior patient outcomes. And that last piece was a big discussion. Making sure that we had the patient represented in there, and that mission statement was important. And so that's the formal mission statement. And I think maybe more generally, the role of the college or associations, right? Our job is to promote, develop, and safeguard the profession, right? In addition to representing the interests of our members. I mentioned this evolution of a profession. College has been around for nearly 80 years at this point. So you can imagine how those issues have changed. And we need to be listening. We need to be responsive to those members and not make decisions based on feelings, right? That they're really driven by data and driven by the needs of the membership and the profession.
That's great. I love the fact that you're putting the patient also in the center of the mission also. That's important. Just kind of a side story. I did my residency back in the day at Kern Hospital, and Dr. Irv Cannett was my residency director. And as you know, he and Dr. Cannett, Dr. Kaplan were very crucial in the formation of ACFAS and its advancement. So really the ACFAS entity as a whole has driven the profession forward, and I commend you for that, continuing that effort.
Thank you for those words.
Maybe this might be a good time to talk about our Feet on the Street initiative. I want to put my American Association of Colleges of Podiatric Medicine hat on. I'm the chair currently. And PJ, you and I had a conversation several months ago talking about the need to increase our student recruitment efforts. And a bunch of the schools and deans got together, and there's no way we could carry this effort out. In fact, going out to 220 undergraduate institutions all over the country, each of the 11 schools and colleges of podiatric medicine are targeting 20 different schools. And we couldn't do that without the help financially and figuratively of the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. So I know that we're working together to help the mentorship network, and I do appreciate that too. But any comments you would have, I do appreciate it, and thank you very much.
So I'll start and just say, first off, we appreciate AACPM's leadership in reaching out to us and engaging us in this initiative. And I will just start by sharing a little story because I thought the approach to this, the hands-on approach, is exactly what's needed. And it was about this time last year, we just talked about COVID. As part of my onboarding experience and part of trying to shorten my learning curve, I really wanted to get out in the field as much as possible. Obviously, that was curtailed by COVID. But about this time last year, I was able to get out and actually visited Dr. Barp and was able to sit in and watch him do a few surgeries. And I will say it was extremely both educational and a great experience, but it was invigorating. And I got so much more out of that than all the literature I've read up to date. And so all that to say, I believe the hands-on, the ability for them to come in, experience, have face-to-face conversations with members is going to be far more effective than any advertising, any other sort of promotions we could do. So kudos on the initiative, and we're excited to be a part of it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Eric, any thoughts on the feet on the street?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a great initiative. I think back to myself when I was an undergrad, knew I wanted to do something in medicine, but what? And so the opportunity I had to shadow and see what foot and ankle surgery or podiatry is actually about was really eye-opening, because you make assumptions on what it is and what it isn't. And I think a lot of the undergrad students don't know what really is out there as an option. So the work-life balance is really good. You can make it what you want it to be. So I think it's great, and I think it's going to really help us recruit students that matriculate into residents, which matriculate into colleagues. So
yeah, absolutely. That's why I tell our students all the time, you're students today, but really we're colleagues, and we're all on the same page, and we're all on the same team, looking forward to the future. So I think we're all looking forward to the future, and we always appreciate the collaborative efforts and working together. So Eric, let's shift gears more towards after you were finished with residency, you went into practice, but you also felt the need to give back. You've been involved with the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons from early in your career. Are there some parallels there between being in practice and working with ACFAS?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, looking back, I've been part of ACFAS now for 20 years, practicing for 20 years. And so, yeah, it was always nice to give back and go teach. And so you get to meet a lot of the guys too, and broaden your network of people that are doing the same thing that you learn every day. And I always tell people when I lecture or when I teach these courses that, look, I might be the one standing up here teaching, but I'm learning just like you are from every single one of you. And I found that to be really good for my practice. It was fulfilling to hear back from people, and you can learn every day from other people. We might have a different perspective, but you can always learn. So that drove me to do more and more. And I really feel strongly about the college. It's a great group of people.
Absolutely. So what kind of practice situation are you in currently?
Yeah, so I'm in a multi-specialty group here in Des Moines. We've got everything from family medicine to internal medicine, neurosurgery, general surgery, trauma surgery. And so there's 170 providers, I think, as far as physician extenders or nurse practitioners, PAs. There's over 300 of us in total providers. And so I'm considered the same as everybody else. I'm a surgeon. We've got our foot and ankle division, surgery centers, hospitals. It's the Iowa Clinic. And so things I like about that, it's collaborative. We've got vascular surgery we work with all the time, orthopedics we work with all the time. So we're considered part of the group and an important part of the medical society. Very
good. And one of the questions that, I've got students that are all involved in the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgery Club at the school. What does that path look like to become the president? I mean, that's a long path. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, I know our listeners would be very interested in how you get involved and how you start working your way up through the ranks.
Yeah, that's funny. I had a student ask me about that the other day. Was I gunning for this position? And I would say no. I spent a lot of time on committees, was asked to run for the board, and I did. And I drug my feet for a long time. It just didn't feel right. Am I doing it for the right reasons? It's to give back. I had no agenda to ever become president, to be quite honest with you. As I spent time on the board and learned more about the board and what the mission statement, like PJ outlined for us earlier, I was asked to be on the exec committee. And once again, I kind of drug my feet a little bit. I just didn't feel right in my life where my kids were at, my practice. And then finally I decided to run. And it's been one of the best things I've ever done. We've got a great cohesive board. We work together. We certainly do have disagreements from time to time, but they're healthy for a board to have disagreements with all of us having the end goal in mind. So it's been good as president. I was telling PJ on the phone earlier today. I look forward. We meet every Tuesday. I look forward to those Tuesday meetings. I'm going to miss them next year when I'm done, but it's been good. PJ's such a great leader. It's been good to work as a dyad together. So it's been fulfilling. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, that sounds great. And that seems to be a common theme too. I was talking to other board members, and there's no question that there's a lot of fulfillment and giving back to the profession. And really, we're all kind of built to give back and make the world a better place. So I appreciate that from the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons for sure. PJ, when you look at your calendar, in the academic environment, we just have cycles every year in the academic environment. What does your calendar look like? When you lay out the year ahead of you, what is your day-to-day job? And then what are things that you peak for, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, great question. So typically the first part of Q1 is crossed out because our conference is usually in February, March of each year. And so oftentimes you come back from the new year and we're hitting the ground running, getting ready for the annual scientific conference. So that really consumes the first few months of the year. That's also where our governance transitions, right? So the board transitions there, our committees turn over. And so a lot of times when we come back from conference, we are then setting up the rest of the year. So our surgical skills programs start occurring. Our committees start meeting regularly. We kind of get into the routine business of the college. For me, kind of the next major milestone, besides all the committee planning meetings and being sure I'm wherever I need to be to support the team and the committees, the board meets again in July. So their summer meeting occurs in July. And so a lot of it is leading up to that summer board meeting. If we are going to be doing strategic planning or updates to any type of major strategy, facilitated discussions or anything along those lines, that'll happen often at that July board meeting. And so coming out of that, internally, we start getting really busy in Q3. We do our performance reviews. We start budgeting for the year ahead. Membership, resident and member renewal starts. Those campaigns kick off. And we just 2 weeks ago, opened registration for the annual scientific conference. So when we come out of that summer board meeting, we really hit the ground running. And again, we still have a lot of programs this time of year, but we're really operating on the next calendar year by the time we get to Q3. So all that to say, heavy focus, of course, on the operational side. The other half of it is getting out in the field as much as possible. All right. So are there podiatric conferences, events, other arenas that I need to be in to continue my learning, to make sure that, back to my comment about representing the members' needs, that we have a good feel for what that is. And so it's kind of that dual focus of making sure I'm staying close, supporting the team operationally, but then out in the field and connecting with the members as much as possible.
That makes sense. I love the initiative ACFAS on the road, getting out and going to the membership, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's been it's been really great. I know we have one coming up, I believe, in New Mexico here in a few weeks. That's getting some good turnout, and we are working with the regions to kind of relook at that. How do we make sure exactly we bring the education out and not always host them just in the Chicagoland area? And so we are trying to do that and diversify kind of those locations of where we're offering programs.
And that makes sense, and thank you for doing that. So Eric, I was going through your CV, and I noted you give a lot of talks, and you've locally, nationally. You're also a key opinion leader for different companies, and I think that's awesome. But what really caught my eye is you've got 24 publications, whether they're in journals or they're book chapters. So where did you get the desire to be writing and doing so much research?
Well, two things about that. One, when you're asked to write a chapter, it's really exciting. There's two things that cause excitement when you're asked to write a chapter: when you're asked and when the dang thing's done. Those are one of those things you've written to and published. It kind of hangs over your head a little bit. But I think the big thing that drives me is the residents. The residents want to do research and always trying to find things to make an article or things better. So there's that desire, and that's been an enjoying part of being part of the residency is following through with that. So, I have published a lot, but still. It's on the shoulders of the residents. They're doing a lot of the work too. So I oftentimes, although my name's on there, I can't take full credit for it.
It's team effort for sure. Yeah. The analogy to the beginning and end reminds me of the old boat story. The happiest day of a boat is buying it, and the next happiest is selling it. So
so true.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was going to say that's so true. I mean, it's just you're trying to meet these deadlines to get these chapters done, and life happens, everything comes up. So it's always good to get that thing off your desk and into the publisher.
So let me ask you this question. What part of your research and publications has been the most gratifying for you? Where do you feel like you've given back most to not just doctors that care for their patients, but for patient benefit?
Well, when you're doing research on those particular publications, you learn a ton because you're reading all these articles that you're citing in your paper, your chapter. So part of that's keeping up on the latest technologies and what the evidence-based medicine is showing. And I think out of that research kind of tailors into your practice and how you practice and do things. I look back, my 20 years in practice, how I did things then and how I do things now are two totally different things. And that's based on outcomes and technology and what's worked and what hasn't worked. So I think that's the big benefit of doing those is my own education.
Oh, absolutely. As a key opinion leader working for different companies trying to develop new products, what do you see coming down the pike that's going to benefit the docs and the patients alike?
Yeah, I think there's a lot in the 3D printing space. Patient-specific implants, I think that's going to be a big thing. The hard thing with those is we're going to be bumping into cost. As we think about cost containment and outcomes, that's going to be a big hurdle for us to get over. But I see a lot in patient-specific implants or PSI, and then 3D printing too, where I think that will be a huge thing too, especially on reconstructive surgery. There's sometimes patients come in and it's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. We have to tailor things to that particular pathology. And I think that's going to open up avenues to do that.
Oh, I agree. It's one of the hardest things about teaching at the podiatric medical school level is we're trying to give the students a foundation and they want everything in black and white. And they realize quickly when they get on rotations, it's anything but black and white out in the real world.
Right. Exactly right. We have students that rotate with me all the time. And they can tell you the textbook answer, but tell me really how we're going to do this and why.
Right.
And there's that leap they have to make sometimes.
Yep, it's a big leap for sure. All right, let's transition. When I do these Dean's Chats and I get feedback from students and clinicians alike, they always say, geez, when I heard you were starting a podcast, I'm really glad you weren't doing latest techniques in plantar fascial care and things. And they said the most exciting part about it is getting to know my guests. And so moving away from the professional world, Eric, you're a surgeon, and PJ, you're an executive director for representing a lot of docs around the country. I was going to ask each of you, what are your passions? What do you do outside of work? And also on top of that, what do you do to recharge the battery? PJ.
Yeah, happy to go first. So I have two daughters, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and that consumes about 99% of my time. But I would say my passion is my family, my wife and my 2 daughters. In terms of hobbies, I'm a former drummer, again, with 2 young daughters. I don't get to play drums all that often, but I do love music. I love playing the drums. But I also have gotten very into paddle tennis, or platform tennis, as it's called. I know it's kind of really popular in certain areas of the country. In the Chicagoland area during COVID, it got very popular. So I try to play that as much as possible. It's sort of tennis on a much smaller court, and it's very good business for our members. So it's a great sport, and I love playing it.
So that's not pickleball, though.
Not pickleball. Similar, a little bit bigger court, a little more competitive.
Oh,
but very similar to pickleball. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. I've never heard of that. That's great.
Yeah, popular in the Northeast, Chicagoland area. It's gaining popularity, but you play outdoors in the winter, and so I think that's what got everyone into it. Is it gave us something to do during COVID and go get some exercise in outside.
So on Saturday you're playing and you're hitting the ball around in your sorrels, and then on Sunday you're going ice fishing.
Rushing home to get home in time for my honey-do list.
Oh, okay, there you go. Eric, what are your hobbies and passions, and what do you do to recharge the battery?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And you know how you learn stuff? PJ, I really never knew you played drums. As much time as we spend together, I did not know that. Cool. My family too. And it's interesting because we're all in different stages of life, but we're empty nesting. So my kids are gone, and it's one of the best things ever. Just to not have 1,000 things going on with your kids. So I play a lot of golf when I can. If I've got time, I'm going to be on the golf course somewhere hitting balls. And I like to snow ski a lot too. And we've found that's one of the best family things ever is snow skiing. Our kids look back and look forward over Christmas and spring break to go skiing. And it's just been a great family thing for us. So everybody's a good skier, and at the end of the day, we all enjoy each other. So But yeah, golf and skiing. And of course, that includes family.
Sure. How'd you decide between snowboarding and skiing?
Yeah. So growing up in Western Nebraska, when we'd go to Wyoming or to Colorado and ski. There was no snowboarding. And so I just became really efficient and proficient at skiing. And I always told my kids they could not snowboard until they could beat me down the hill on skis on technical things. And now they're 22 and 20, and they have no desire to snowboard. They're really good skiers. So yeah, I've never snowboarded and have no desire to.
Oh, gotcha. So when you golf with Kevin Smith at all?
I've played with him back when I was a student, but no, I don't play with him now. I heard he golfs a little bit, and I'd welcome him to a match if he'd like to play. Yeah, I went golfing with him in Nashville at the APMA meeting before the meeting, and he hits the ball pretty darn good. And does he stand on the wrong side of the ball? No, I stand on the wrong side of the ball. He stands on the right side of the ball. You're a lefty, because Kevin writes left and uses a scalpel left-handed, but I didn't know if he golfed left or not. We had the discussion. I have the same issues. I cut with a scissor with my right. I'm left-handed. I'm left-eye dominant. I mean, I just can't figure out what I am, really. Kevin has the same issues, I think. I would love to play Kevin, and I hope he listens to this, and I'll tell him anytime he wants a match, just he's got my number. All right, sounds good. So another segment we do on the Dean's Chat podcast is like the 5-minute psychology hour, or minute, if you will. And usually what we do is the Big 5 challenge, or the Big 5 personality assessment. But you all introduced me to the DISC assessment, and I took the test myself today. But would you mind sharing why you did that with the board? I think it was a great story. PJ.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the DISC assessment was really a way to kind of a bit of an icebreaker, right? It helps you both understand your own personality, right? It assesses you and lets you know about some of your strengths and some of your opportunities for improvement. And then at the same time, allows you to sort of compare that personality style, right, against, in this case, other members of the board and other senior staff members. And so really great tool, especially when you're approaching maybe a difficult conversation or one, that could be emotionally charged. Understanding the folks around the table and how they might respond to it. It's actually very helpful. So it's a great tool, and it was recommended by Eric to do it prior to our last meeting, and was really well received.
I thought it was interesting because it's a 20-question test, and you get 4 or 5 choices, and you have to say which one you're most like and which one you're least like. And so after you sent me your results, I took it also. And for better or worse, Eric, you and I have the exact same scores. Yeah, like mine's. It's a great thing. So PJ's not too far off from that. No, he's not. So it's interesting because, Eric, you and I, our highlights are action, enthusiasm, and results. PJ, you were collaborative, enthusiastic, and support. And when I was looking at that, I was thinking, I wonder if that's nature or nurture. Maybe it's a little bit of both over time as we get involved in our professions. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts?
So I'll go first. So I agree. I think it's a little bit of both. I think at the end of the day, we probably all have a little bit of all of those in us, right? So it's sort of where do we tend to go versus you're in that box. And so, yeah, it's kind of one of these things where it's a bit of a moving target, but I would agree. I think it's pretty spot on. And there are different versions. I think ours had maybe a few more questions, but it was really helpful because you could go and log into a website. And again, you could pull up everybody's profile and compare yours to theirs and see, okay, where might we have some friction? Where might there be right areas of alignment in terms of how we work together? So I think it's been a really, really helpful tool.
Eric, your thoughts?
Totally agree. Yeah, I think it's a combination of both nature and nurture. But, the thought process, I've done it in some of my other leadership roles. And it's interesting to find out by yourself, one, but two, as PJ highlighted, it gives you the opportunity to recognize personalities that's around the table and how to interact with them, how to communicate with them, how do I get the results to push the board forward to our desired results. And so with that, at first, when I talked to PJ about doing that before our summer board meeting, I thought there'd be pushback from the board to do that, but everybody was pretty enthused to do it, and kind of ongoing joke of, well, I'm a D personality, or it still comes up to this day. So it's been good. I think people have learned a little bit about themselves, but more importantly, other board members.
Right. We've done similar things with faculty and, Myers-Briggs and the big five personality. And I agree with you. I think it helps because you can have constructive discussions where people disagree and come to a amiable conclusion because where other people are coming from. And I think over time it generates trust and collaboration for sure.
Totally agree. I totally agree on that.
Well, very good. So a couple other questions. Eric, student is applying to the Des Moines College of Podiatric Medicine, and they come by your office to shadow. What do you tell a prospective student who's considering podiatric medicine?
A couple things. I always tell them, one, that I'm an open book. Ask any questions. You're seeing patients with me, but ask work-life balance. What's that like? What do you want out of this profession? What's that look like for you? Do you want to have a surgical practice? Is it more of a primary practice? You're just treating patients. So I try to help them through that. What attracts me? I'm busy. I'm very fortunate to be extremely busy, and I am in a lot of leadership roles. So, they can shadow with me all day if they want, or if they just want to come to surgery and see that. But I think it's important to see both the clinical and the surgical aspects so they're getting the full picture. So I carry the torch for a profession. I think it's a great profession, and I can't believe why people don't want to do this profession, or we don't have more people applying. So I enjoy having students.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's a phenomenal profession. And really, it's just a career awareness because, back 40 years ago, less than that, but close. I was looking at going into podiatric medicine, and it was the same situation. I didn't realize it wasn't a branch of an MD or a DO. I just didn't know. And to this day, students, when we go to different colleges, they don't realize we have our own application service. We have our own boards situation. We have our own certification. So I think a lot of it's career awareness. And if we can team up students that are interested in a health profession with a doctor like yourself to shadow, there's no doubt we're going to increase those applications. So thank you for helping out with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things that comes out of those students shadowing with me is just the misconceptions of what we actually do. And I think it's eye-opening. I'm proud to say that I've had a bunch of students that have rotated with me in the past that now have gone through the podiatry schools. One of my scribes that I had forever is a second-year resident down in Orlando. It wasn't even on his radar until he's my scribe. It makes me proud to see him excel so much.
Oh, that's great. We have a bunch of scribes coming through school right now because they get a firsthand knowledge of what we do and don't do. And I think that also helps sell the profession for sure. So, PJ, question for you. What does the future hold for the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons?
Great question. And I was going to jump in earlier, but I'll bring it here, which is when we were talking about research. I believe the future is bright. As we talked about, it's not without some challenges. But I think in regards to research, one of the areas the college has been working on the board's been focused on this for a couple of years. We had a special task force come together to look at registries. So back to not just supporting research, but how do we get the data to help our members do quality research? And so that has been actually convened formally at this point. The board has approved it, and a council for registry management is convened, and actually the programmer has been contracted at this point. So the CRM is underway developing it. Our target at this point for to be able to sign up and actually utilize the registry ideally will be sometime in Q2. So we're in that development phase now, and the target will be we're looking at rolling out 5 modules when we start. So all that to say, we're really excited about that. It has been a major focal point of, should we, could we, and all signs pointed to yes. There's a lot of excitement both from the members in the boardroom through the committees about the registry. So we are excited to be underway and actually building it at this point.
Well, that's great. That's a major effort. Congratulations. Well, I wanted to just thank both of you for carving out time in the middle of your days. Appreciate all you do for our profession. I speak on behalf of the profession for sure. And I would like to tell our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully it was insightful and you learned about the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating. And if you're on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. PJ and Eric, I'm going to send each of you one of these Dean's Chat cups. That'll get you through those early mornings and late nights when you've got committee work and you've got early cases. And so you expect that in the mail. And cheers, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye now.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.